To remove the washer bottle, which is this one in here in the left wheel arch, first thing you want to do is remove the wheel, then remove the trim from in here. There's a bunch of torque screws as well as a couple of M6 plastic nuts that need to come off, but that comes off relatively simply. And then this will be here. Prior to removing anything here, once you remove the wheel and the wheel arch, there's a piece of foam that's going to sit like that, which is going to stop the bottle from actually coming out. So you just need to grab hold of that and just gently wiggle that out and pull that out. Now the way this actually gets put in, there's a single T30 Torx up there, which we'll need to remove. And then behind here, and it's a bit hard to see, there are two big rubber grommets that actually get pushed into spots into the chassis, and that's what holds it in place. The electrical connections, that's the actual sensor there. So you get access to that pretty easily. But the actual motors for the washer, for the windscreen is down here, and for the headlight is actually behind here if you have that fitted. I don't have that fitted on my car, but that's there. Also the connection onto the inside here, which goes to where you actually fill it up from underneath the lid. That piece there is just a rubber grommet, and this here actually has a tube which goes down to about there, which just slots straight into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove that T30 Torx. And then what you want to do is disconnect the connection point up here and pull that out before you actually pull anything out, because pulling that forward actually just jams all that up, and you want that free so things can actually come forward. So if you lift the front lid, this actually will just, it clips in there, so you can just grab hold of that and pull that, but now it's stuck in underneath there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow that down and ease that out so that all comes out. And that just pops out the top, and that's what that looks like. That's the one that actually goes into that rubber grommet. You know, I would suggest that if you're doing this, you do it with the thing relatively empty. It's close to impossible. Oh, I guess you'd go close to emptying it out just by running the windscreen wiper washers constantly. But to have this not full of fluid is going to be easier for you. I would also suggest having something down here so this thing can actually sit on, because what you're going to have to do is hold on to it, rotate it around, and disconnect a whole bunch of connections on the other side, including some that look like relatively fragile connections for the actual the water hoses, etc. But once you've got that screw out the top there, then you're going to pull it rearward to get it out of those grommets. Now these things are actually in pretty tight. I've actually greased them when I put it back in there, because getting it back in was close to impossible, I found. But putting a bit of grease on those grommets, they seem to slot in there quite nicely. There's kind of a little handle in behind there, so you can sort of grab that and grab it up the top, and then just wiggle it out. There you go, that came out much simpler with a bit of grease on it. There are those two grommets on the other side. And when we rotate around, we now have access to all our connections. Now I've actually disconnected that pipe here, but that one there goes to where up the top there, which is where the pump actually drives to the windshield washers. So you want to set that on something there so you can then disconnect a whole bunch of stuff. Now these connections here and that one there is exactly the same as the one at the bottom that is on the pump. And all you do is you get a little screwdriver and you just push that forward like that. Same on the other side. It's a bit difficult on that one, but on the one up the top it's much simpler because you have access to both sides. There we go. And that just pops straight off like that. And then to put that back in again, actually you can push that down and that just pushes straight on. So that connection is the same at the pump at the bottom. That's the pump for the windshield washer. The connection, the electrical connection, is for that. And so to actually have a bit, to be able to pull this down and do all this stuff, you're better off disconnecting that similar sort of connection there at the top, which goes to the hose up the top there. But once that is out, we can disconnect the electrical connections and the hoses, etc., so we can pull the thing out. That one there is just a squeeze together and pull out. I've pulled that off once or twice, so it's nice and loose, but that was actually pretty jammed in there. So you might just need to squeeze that and just get a small screwdriver and then just lever that out. Once that hose is disconnected there, you can just pop that out. And then that will just, it sort of runs along these nice lines which they've made here. And then to actually remove the pump itself, you can just rotate that around and that'll just wiggle straight up. Prior to doing that, as you can see, you'll need to remove the electrical connector. So to do that, that's just one of those, you pull it up like that, and once that's off, now that whole thing can be removed, and that pump can be removed there. Now I don't have the pump here for the the headlight washer system, but the pump would actually just be slotted in there. I'm assuming there would be an electrical connection. Actually, that would be for the fluid connector, and I'm assuming it actually runs up that line there. So you should be able to, once you pull that off, disconnect the actual fluid connector there, and as it's pulled out, disconnect the plug and actually pull it out relatively simply. For the installation, what I found was easiest was the pump line, which is going to run down the back here and have that connection up the top there. Have the reservoir empty, remove the pump out of the reservoir, connect that line that runs all the way up the back here to it, so it's just dangling down here. Then move the reservoir in there, and then it's pretty easy to actually then put the pump in there, run that line up the back and clip it in up the top. Connect the electrical connections to both, and then push it into those grommets at the back. Don't put the screw in at the top just yet. Leave it so it's a little bit dangling and a little bit loose at the top especially, and then put the filler nozzle in, because with that movement here, that actually allows that to go in much more easily. Clip it in at the top, and then the final thing, go in, put that M6 screw in at the top.